I stood in the wings, heart pounding, while my little brother claimed my melody as his masterpiece. The applause was thunder. The words he spoke next, Liora, should find her own way, cut deeper than any knife. Family can wound the worst. This is the story of the song he tried to steal, and how I stole it back. The lights were blinding. Not the soft glow of my bedroom lamp at 3 a.m., not the warm haze of the tiny studio where I used to record demos on a cracked laptop. These were stage lights, sharp, merciless, the kind that make sweat bead on your forehead even when your hands are ice cold. I stood just behind the black velvet curtain stage, left close enough to smell the fresh varnish on the new riser, close enough to hear the low hum of anticipation from the crowd. Seattle's biggest tech ballroom tonight, crystal chandeliers, rows of folding chairs filled with venture capitalists in expensive hoodies, journalists tapping furiously on laptops, a sea of phone screens already recording. The launch event we'd been bleeding for. Our launch event. My launch event. Or so I'd thought. The MC's voice boomed through the monitors. And now, the man behind the music, the visionary who turned a garage playlist into the future of streaming. Thorne Calder applause erupted, sharp, eager, hungry. I watched my little brother stride onto the stage like he owned every square inch of it. Same dark hair, same easy smile he'd worn since he was 12, and convinced Mom to let him stay up late to mix tracks on my old keyboard. He looked taller tonight, sharper, polished. The hoodie was gone. He wore a tailored black blazer over a plain white tee, the kind of effortless that costs money. He took the mic. Paused just long enough for the room to lean in. "Thank you, everyone." Thorne began, voice smooth, practiced. "Tonight isn't just about an app. It's about sound. About feeling something so deeply it changes how you move through the world." My stomach twisted. I knew what was coming. He gestured toward the massive screen behind him. A waveform appeared, my waveform. The one I'd spent 6 months carving out of silence. 6 months of rewrites at dawn, of headphones bleeding into my skull, of crying into a pillow because the bridge still didn't hit right. 6 months of telling myself this song, this one song, would be the proof that everything I'd given up was worth it. The track started. Not the rough demo I'd sent him. The polished final mix. Strings swelling, vocal layered just so the drop I'd fought over for weeks. My voice filled the room. My voice. And the crowd inhaled like they'd been waiting their whole lives to breathe it in. Thorne smiled wider. "This is the heart of Calder Audio. This is what we're building the future on." He didn't say my name. Not once. He kept going, words sliding out like they'd been rehearsed in front of a mirror. "We've always believed music belongs to everyone. And starting tonight, we're taking that belief global. New partnerships. New direction. A vision that's bigger than any one person." He turned slightly, eyes scanning the wings, found me for half a second. Our eyes locked. His expression didn't change. No flicker of guilt. No softening. Just that same calm certainty he'd had since we were kids, and he'd borrow my records without asking. And I think... He let the pause stretch, let the room hold its breath. "I think it's time for my sister Liora to find her own path forward." The words landed like a slap. The applause exploded again, louder this time, approving, congratulatory. Phones flashed. Someone in the front row whistled. Thorne raised a hand, modest, gracious. I couldn't move. My fingers were numb against the velvet curtain. My chest felt hollow, like someone had reached in and scooped out everything soft. I heard the song still playing, my song looping into the bridge I'd rewritten 17 times. The same notes I'd hummed to him when he was 23 and broke when he said, "Leo, if we build this together, we'll never have to beg for a seat at the table again." I'd believed him. 7 years. 7 years of late nights turning into mornings of turning down solo gigs because the startup needed me in the office, of pouring every unused royalty check into payroll so we didn't miss another rent payment. 7 years of telling myself family was the only dream that mattered. And in 90 seconds on stage, he'd erased me. Not with anger, not with shouting, with a polite suggestion that I should probably go find my own way. The lights stayed bright. The crowd kept clapping. The song kept playing. I stood there, frozen behind the curtain, tasting copper in my mouth, realizing for the first time that the person I'd trusted most in the world had just stolen the only thing I'd ever truly owned. My melody, my proof, my future. And he'd done it in front of everyone who mattered. This is the story of how I lost everything I built, and how I took it back. Because sometimes the people who share your blood are the ones who steal your song the loudest. And sometimes the only way to keep breathing is to sing louder than they ever could. The applause still echoed in my ears long after the lights dimmed. I didn't stay for the after party. I slipped out the side exit while everyone was still shaking Thorne's hand, still congratulating him on his vision. The Seattle rain had started, cold, steady, the kind that soaks through your coat before you realize you're shivering. I walked 3 blocks without feeling my feet, then hailed a cab. The driver asked where to. I said the first place that came to mind, the old loft studio on Capitol Hill, the one we'd rented in year 1 when the company was just Thorne's laptop and my notebook full of half-finished lyrics. I hadn't been back in months. The key still worked. The door creaked open to dust and the faint smell of coffee grounds from the ancient machine in the corner. I flipped on one lamp, bare bulb, no shade, and sat at the desk Thorne used to use. My old laptop was still there, plugged in like it was waiting for me. I opened the company drive. Logged in with my admin credentials, Thorne never bothered to revoke them. Why would he? I was family. The folder labeled Catalog, Core IP, stared back at me. I clicked. There they were, the registration certificates for every major track we'd pushed in the last 2 years. My fingerprints were all over them, the chord progressions I'd fought for, the vocal runs I'd layered until my throat bled, the bridge I'd rewritten on the floor of this very room at 4 a.m. because Thorne said it wasn't hitting. But the owner field on every PDF read, Calder Audio LLC, no co-writer credit. No Liora Calder, not even a footnote. My hands started shaking. I scrolled faster. The timestamps were there, uploaded 6 months ago, right after I'd sent him the final masters. He'd filed them the next day. Alone. I closed the laptop. Sat in the dark for what felt like hours. The rain tapped the window like fingers drumming on a coffin lid. Then I heard voices. Not in my head. Real ones. Coming from the hallway outside the loft. Thorne's voice, low, excited the way it got when he closed a deal. Yeah, Vesper. The numbers are solid. They're offering 8 figures up front plus equity. We move fast, we can close before the quarter ends. A woman's laugh, light, confident. I knew that laugh. Vesper Lang. The hotshot producer he'd brought on 6 months ago to freshen the sound. She'd been in every meeting since, always sitting close to him, always nodding like she already knew what he was going to say. Thorne again. The catalog's clean. No loose ends. We'll spin it as a clean exit. My sister. She'll understand. She's always wanted to do her own thing anyway. A pause. Vesper's voice softer now. You sure she won't fight it? Those songs are their company property. Thorne cut in. Sharp. Final. We built this together. She'll get a nice severance. Enough to start over. She doesn't need the spotlight. Never did. My breath caught. I pressed my back against the wall, heart slamming so hard I thought they'd hear it through the door. Vesper and the master recordings locked in our servers. We transfer ownership at closing. No one's touching them. Silence. Then Thorne's footsteps closer. The doorknob rattled, just testing. I froze. He didn't try to open it, just laughed quietly. Old habits. Thought I heard something. They moved away. Their voices faded down the stairwell. I slid to the floor, knees to chest. The bare bulb buzzed overhead. 7 years. I remembered the night we signed the first lease, Thorne crying because he thought we'd failed before we started. I'd hugged him, told him we'd make it. I'd turned down 3 solo tour offers that spring because payroll was late. I'd lived in a studio apartment the size of a closet so we could afford the server costs. I'd wired my last royalty check $5,000 from an old indie release to cover employee health insurance when we almost lost coverage. And he'd filed my songs under the company name, without asking, without telling, without a trace of me. I stayed on the floor until the rain stopped. Until the city outside went quiet except for the occasional car hissing past. Then I pulled out my phone, scrolled to Calliope Voss. She picked up on the second ring. "Leo, it's 2 a.m. You okay?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out at first, then barely a whisper. "No, I'm not." A long silence on her end, then gentle. "Tell me where you are." I gave her the address. She didn't ask questions, just said, "I'm coming. Don't move." I hung up, stared at the blank wall. The anger wasn't loud yet. It was small, hot, coiled tight in my chest like a spring that had been compressed for years. I thought about the stage lights again, about Thorne's calm face when he said I should find my own path, about how easy it had been for him to erase me, and for the first time in 7 years I let myself wonder, what if I didn't want to find a new path? What if I wanted the old one back? The one he'd walked on while I carried the weight. Calliope arrived 40 minutes later. She didn't knock, just used her spare key, the one I'd given her years ago when she needed a place to crash after a bad breakup. She saw me on the floor. Didn't say anything at first. Just sat beside me shoulder to shoulder. Then quiet. What did he do? I told her everything. The registrations, the phone call, the severance. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she exhaled slow. "Leo, this isn't just business. This is theft." I looked at her. Really looked. And I saw it in her eyes, the same thing I felt rising in me. Not pity. Recognition. She'd been there before. A producer who'd had her beats sampled without credit. A friend who'd watched her work get claimed by someone with a bigger name. She reached for my hand. "We're going to fix this," she said. "But you have to decide something first." I swallowed. "What? Are you ready to stop protecting him?" The question hung between us like smoke. I didn't answer right away. But deep down in the place where the music still lived, the place he hadn't touched yet, I felt the first real shift. Not rage, not yet. Just the slow, cold certainty that the next song I wrote wouldn't be for him. It would be for me. And it would be loud enough to drown out everything he'd tried to silence. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the sky stayed heavy gray as old concrete. I hadn't slept. Calliope left around dawn with a quiet promise I'll keep my phone on. "Call if you need anything. Anything." She hugged me once hard like she was trying to hold the pieces together, then disappeared down the stairwell. I sat alone in the loft for hours staring at the blank screen of my laptop. The cursor blinked, patient, waiting for me to decide what came next. I thought about running, about packing a bag, buying a ticket to anywhere that wasn't Seattle, starting over in a city where no one knew my name or my brother's. I could vanish. Let Thorne have the company, the song, the spotlight. Let him win. The thought made my stomach turn. Because running would mean admitting he was right, that I didn't belong in the frame anymore. That my place had always been behind the curtain, feeding him lines, holding the mic when he wasn't ready. No. Not this time. I opened my contacts. Scrolled past Thorne's name, past Mom's, past the old bandmates I hadn't spoken to in years, and stopped on Isolde Wren. I hadn't called her in 4 years. Not since she'd pulled me aside after a showcase and said, "You got fire, kid. Don't let anyone bank it for their own warmth." She'd been the one who got me my first real studio time, the one who listened to my early demos when no one else would. She was retired now, living up in the San Juans, but the number was still there. Unchanged. My thumb hovered, Then I pressed call. She answered on the third ring. Voice like worn velvet. Liora Calder. To what do I owe the ghost of Christmas past? I laughed short-cracked. It surprised me. Hi, Isolde. A pause. Then softer. You don't sound okay, honey. I told her. Not everything. Not the loft, not the overheard call, but enough. The registrations, the stage, the severance. The way my brother had looked at me like I was already gone. She listened, didn't interrupt. When I finished, she exhaled long. You still got those original session files? The ones before the company polish? Yeah. Good. Send them to me. Encrypted. I know someone who knows someone. But first, breathe. You're not erased yet. I hung up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Next, Seraphine Quill. I'd found her name in an old industry forum thread about copyright disputes. Independent lawyer, sharp. Specializes in music IP, no nonsense. I emailed her a brief summary anonymous, at first attached a redacted screenshot of one registration PDF. She replied within the hour. Call me. Now. Her voice on the phone was calm, measured, like she'd heard worse stories before breakfast. Ms. Calder, if what you're saying is accurate, this isn't a gray area. It's black and white. But we need timeline proof. Emails. Drafts. Anything showing creation predates company involvement. I have it. Then we talk strategy. Quietly. No moves until we're airtight. I agreed. By afternoon, another email landed. From Kai Sterling, former lead investor, the one who'd written the first big check when Calder Audio was still just a pitch deck and caffeine. He'd quietly stepped back 6 months ago, citing strategic differences. I hadn't heard from him since. Subject not blind. Body one sentence. I know what Thorne's doing. Meet me tomorrow. Coffee. No recording. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Kai had always liked me, called me the real talent in meetings when Thorne wasn't listening. He'd once slipped me a business card and said, if things go sideways, call. I'd laughed it off. Now the card was in my hand. I met him at a small place in Fremont. No windows facing the street. He was already there, black coffee untouched, looking older than I remembered. He didn't waste time. I've got transaction logs, offshore wires, emails between Thorne and Vesper that mention clean catalog transfer before the sale closes. They're sloppy, arrogant. He slid a USB across the table. Everything's time-stamped. Use it wisely. I looked at him. Why help me? He shrugged. Because I invested in a vision, not a heist. I took the drive, didn't thank him. Just nodded. Back in the loft that night, I sat at the old mixing board, the one Thorne had bought secondhand, and we'd spent a weekend cleaning. I opened the session file for the main track, the one he'd played on stage. No company plugins, no Vesper tweaks, just my voice. Raw. The first take I'd done alone before anyone else touched it. I hit play. The opening chords filled the room, simple acoustic, the way I'd written it on my couch with a borrowed guitar. My voice came in uncertain at first, then stronger. The melody I'd carried in my head for months before I ever showed it to him. I listened all the way through. Tears came halfway. Not loud sobs, quiet ones. The kind that slip out when you realize something you thought was broken is still whole. The song ended. Silence settled. I whispered to the empty room, "It's still mine." Not a question. A fact. I closed the file, backed it up 3 places, then opened a new project. Blank canvas. No deadline. No brother looking over my shoulder. Just me. And the first note I played wasn't angry. It was deliberate. Cold. Clear. The anger had finally uncoiled, not into fire but into something sharper. Something patient. I saved the new file under one word. Reprise. Somewhere in the city, Thorne was probably celebrating the impending sale. Vesper was probably drafting press releases. They thought the board was set. They were wrong. I wasn't going to shout. I was going to play. And when the music started again, this time on my terms, they'd hear exactly what they'd tried to steal. The question wasn't whether I could stop them. It was how long they had left before they realized the song had already changed keys. The days blurred into a quiet rhythm of shadows. I stopped going to the office, told HR I needed personal time. No one questioned it. Thorne had already started rewriting the narrative. Leora's stepping back, making space for the new direction. It was easier that way. For everyone. Except me. I worked from the loft at night. Lights low. Headphones on. Seraphine Quill's emails arrived like clockwork, precise, unemotional, every attachment a bulletproof piece of paper. Timestamps from my personal Gmail drafts. Old Dropbox folders I'd never deleted. Screenshots of early voice memos dated years before Calder audio existed. She filed the re-registrations quietly under my name alone. No fanfare, no press release. Just a quiet shift in the public database that only someone looking for trouble would notice. I didn't tell Thorne. Didn't tell anyone except Calliope, who came by twice a week with takeout and silence. She'd sit on the couch while I worked, scrolling her phone, occasionally murmuring, "You sure about this?" I'd nod. She'd go back to scrolling. Isolde Wren was different. She didn't ask questions. She sent one text after I mailed her the raw session files. "Meet me at the cabin. Friday. Bring your guitar." The ferry ride to the San Juans was gray and choppy. I stood on the deck the whole way, wind whipping my hair, salt stinging my eyes. When I arrived, Isolde was waiting on the porch. Same silver braid, same worn denim jacket, same steady gaze that had once told a 22-year-old me she had something worth hearing. We didn't talk much at first. She made tea. Strong. Black. We sat by the wood stove. Then she pointed to the old upright piano in the corner. "Play it," she said, "the way you first heard it in your head." I hesitated. My fingers felt foreign on the keys, but I started anyway. Simple chords? No effects. No polish. Just the melody, my melody bare as bone. When I sang, my voice cracked on the first verse. I stopped. Swallowed. Tried again. Isolde listened. Eyes closed. When I finished, she opened them. "That's the one," she said. "Not the shiny version they're selling. This one. We recorded it that weekend. One mic. One take. Acoustic guitar." My voice raw from crying the night before. No redos. When it was done, she burned it to a single CD, old school like a secret, and handed it to me. "Release it where they won't look," she said. "Small platform. Loyal listeners. Let it breathe." I chose Bandcamp. A quiet page. No announcement. Just the track titled Original Key. I set it to Name Your Price. Uploaded at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. Then I waited. The closing happened 2 weeks later. I wasn't invited. Of course not. But Kai Sterling live-streamed the aftermath discreetly from his phone in the hallway outside the conference room. He sent me the clip later, no commentary. Just the file. I watched it alone, sitting on the loft floor with my back against the wall. Thorne at the head of the table. Vesper beside him. Lawyers in suits. The acquiring execs smiling like they'd won the lottery. Handshakes. Papers sliding across polished wood. Then the lead attorney from the buyer's side cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, we've just received an update from the Copyright Office. The core catalog, the primary revenue driver, has been re-registered. Personal ownership. Liora Calder. Effective retroactively based on creation dates." Silence. Thorne's face didn't change at first. Then it did. Slowly. Like ice cracking under pressure. What his voice was small. Almost boyish. The attorney repeated it. Slower. Clearer. Vesper leaned forward. "That's impossible. We filed. Apparently not the exec cut in. The chain of title is broken. No assignment from the original author. We can't acquire what the company doesn't legally control." Thorne's hands gripped the table edge. Knuckles white. He looked up straight into the camera Kai had left running in the cracked door. He knew I'd see it. He didn't speak for a long moment. When he did, his voice cracked. She took it back. Not anger. Not accusation. Devastation. The kind that comes when you realize the pedestal you built was standing on someone else's back. Vesper tried to argue. Papers rustled. Voices rose. But Thorne just sat there staring at the table like it held answers. The feed cut when security noticed the phone. I closed the video. Set my phone down. My chest ached, not with triumph. With something heavier. Something that tasted like ash. I remembered him at 10 years old sneaking into my room to listen to my first demo on headphones. The way his eyes widened. Leo, this is magic. The way he'd hug me after every fight with Mom. The way he'd cried, really cried when we signed the lease for the first office. He'd been my little brother, and I'd just watched him break. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Because justice isn't clean. It doesn't come with a bow. It leaves marks on everyone. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city lights flickering through the rain that had started again. The question settled in my bones, quiet but insistent. Could I stop here? Could I let him drown in the consequences he'd built? Or would some part of me, some stubborn, stupid part, still reach out to pull him back? The answer didn't come easy, but it came. I picked up my guitar. Not to write a new song, to remember the old one, and to decide once and for all whether silence was kinder than the next note I chose to play. The collapse came fast. Not with fireworks or headlines. Quiet. Inevitable. Like a song fading out before the final chord. The acquiring company walked away the next morning. No press release. Just a terse email to Thorne's inbox. Due to unresolved IP discrepancies, we are terminating discussions effective immediately. Kai Sterling made sure the story leaked carefully, anonymously through industry blogs and a few well-placed Reddit threads. Seattle startup loses core catalog in last-minute rights dispute. No names, no finger-pointing at me. Just enough truth to make investors nervous, enough silence to let the damage spread. Vesper Lang was gone by Friday. Packed her laptop, left a one-line note on Thorne's desk. No future here. She didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. The shine had worn off. Thorne didn't call me. Not at first. He texted. Late one night, 3 lines. Jun sai. Chico the gu bai hat jo and hung mat het roy. I read it on the loft couch phone glowing in the dark. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I could picture him alone in the empty office, now lights off, except for the desk lamp staring at the screen like it might change the words if he looked long enough. I didn't reply. I turned the phone face down. Let the silence stretch. The next week I booked the back room at the Anchor, the little coffee shop on Pike where I used to write lyrics on napkins at 2 a.m. back when the company was still a dream, and Thorne still asked my opinion. 10 chairs. No stage. Just a stool, a mic stand, and the same battered upright piano in the corner that had been there since the 90s. I told only 2 people, Calliope and Isolde. Calliope arrived early, arms full of candles she'd bought on impulse. Atmosphere, she said, setting them on the windowsill. Isolde came alone, coat still damp from the ferry, carrying nothing but quiet. A handful of others showed up, old collaborators, a couple baristas who'd overheard me humming years ago, one former intern who'd quit when things got weird. No press, no announcement, just word of mouth. I stepped to the mic at 8 sharp. The room smelled like espresso and rain-soaked wool. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight. I started without introduction. Just picked up the guitar, my old one, the one with the chipped fretboard, and played the opening chords. The original ones. Slow, unadorned. My voice came in soft at first, almost a whisper. The room went still. I sang the whole thing through. No effects. No layers. Just me and the melody that had lived in my bones longer than the company ever had. My throat tightened on the bridge, the part I'd rewritten 17 times, but I didn't stop. The last note hung in the air, then faded into the hum of the espresso machine. Silence. Then I spoke. Quiet. Steady. This song. It never belonged to just one person. It belongs to the nights we stayed up until our eyes burned, to the dreams we whispered when no one was listening, and to the wounds we learned slowly, painfully how to heal. No one clapped right away. They didn't need to. The room felt full in a way applause never could. I stepped off the stool. Calliope met me with a hug that lasted too long. Isolde just nodded, once eyes shining. The recording someone had snuck on their phone found its way online the next day. No title. Just live at the anchor. Original key. It spread slowly, at first shared in small Discord servers, posted in songwriter forums, then faster. Streams trickled in, then steadied. Enough to pay rent. Enough to buy groceries without checking the balance first. Enough to let me breathe. Thorne never texted again. I heard through Kai that he'd sold what was left of the office furniture to cover server bills. That he was crashing on a friend's couch downtown. That he'd stopped posting on LinkedIn. I didn't gloat. I didn't grieve either. I just let it be. One night in November, the rain came down in sheets. I climbed to the rooftop of my building, the one I'd finally moved into after the first real check cleared. No view of the Space Needle tonight. Just wet concrete city lights blurred through the downpour and the low rumble of traffic far below. I sat on the edge of a planter box, knees drawn up, coat hood pulled low. The wind carried the smell of salt from the sound. I thought about him then, not with anger, not with pity. Just memory. The boy who used to steal my headphones and dance badly in the living room. The brother who once said, "We're in this together, Leo." Always. The ache was still there. It probably always would be, but it didn't own me anymore. I tilted my head back. Let the rain hit my face. Cold. Clean. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I smiled. Not the wide movie-ending grin. Just a small one. Tired. Real. The kind that comes when you've walked through fire and come out the other side, still able to feel the warmth of your own skin. Justice isn't about destruction, it's about reclamation. About taking back the melody someone tried to claim as theirs alone. And about forgiving yourself quietly, privately, for ever believing it was okay to give it away. The rain kept falling. I stayed until I was soaked through. Then I went inside, locked the door behind me, and started humming. Not his song, mine. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West, stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blaze the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process, but every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work.